The rain that night wasn't just rain. It was the kind of storm that made the streets look like rivers, the kind that seeped through your jacket no matter how fast you ran. I'd just finished another double shift at the hospital, dragging my tired body home, praying I could sleep before the next one. Rent was late again. My phone had 3 missed calls from the landlord, and my sneakers were so worn out they squeaked with every step. I remember thinking, this is what survival feels like, barely keeping your head above water. By the time I got to my apartment building, I was soaked through and shaking from the cold. The hallway smelled like wet carpet and fried food from someone's late dinner, and all I wanted was to lock my door and disappear. But there right by my door sat a man I'd never seen before. A man in an expensive suit slumped against the wall holding something small wrapped in a damp blanket. At first I thought he was just some drunk guy who'd wandered into the wrong building, but then I saw the little face peeking out from that blanket, a newborn. My heart stopped. I dropped my bag and knelt down, instincts from years as a nurse kicking in. "Sir, can you hear me?" I whispered, touching his shoulder. His eyes flicked open, and I'll never forget them. Dark green, glassy with exhaustion and something deeper. Grief. His lips trembled as he rasped, "Please, help us." I didn't ask questions. I hauled him up as gently as I could, guiding him and the tiny baby inside. My place was small, a studio apartment with hand-me-down furniture and a leaky window, but it was warm. He collapsed into my one chair, clutching that baby like she was his last connection to life. Up close, I saw he was pale, shaking, and soaking wet. The baby, a little girl, couldn't have been more than a few days old. Her lips had a faint bluish tinge that made my stomach drop. "She's freezing," I muttered, grabbing every blanket I owned. He said her name was Lily, voice breaking on the word. "And you?" I asked. He hesitated before answering Daniel. Daniel Mercer. The name sounded familiar, but it didn't click until later. That night, all I saw was a man who looked like he'd been shattered into pieces holding a baby he clearly didn't know how to care for. I made him eat some soup, warmed a bottle, and showed him how to hold Lily properly. He sat there, hands trembling, tears slipping silently down his face as she latched on. That's when he told me his wife had died giving birth. He hadn't been home since the funeral. "Everywhere I look, I see her," he whispered. "I can't. I don't know how to do this." Something in me cracked open. I'd been so focused on my own struggles, debt exhaustion, loneliness, that I'd forgotten there were worse kinds of pain. I promised him they could stay the night. "Tomorrow we'll figure it out," I said. One step at a time. By morning, my couch had become his bed, my dresser drawer, Lily's crib. Daniel looked like a ghost, but when Lily fussed, he tried clumsy, panicked, but trying. Watching this man in a $1,000 shirt fumble with diapers in my tiny bathroom would have been funny if it hadn't been so heartbreaking. That's when I realized who he was. I'd seen his face on billboards downtown, Daniel Mercer, CEO of Mercer Developments, one of the richest men in the city. And here he was standing barefoot in my kitchen, asking if he was holding the bottle right. We fell into a strange rhythm over the next few days. I called in sick, burning through my last paid leave to help them. Daniel confessed he hadn't told anyone where he was, not even his assistant. He didn't want to be dragged back into boardrooms and headlines. He just wanted to figure out how to be a father. There was a quiet desperation in him I couldn't ignore, so I taught him. Feeding schedules, burping techniques, how to rock Lily to sleep, and every night I'd wake up to find him sitting by the window with her whispering stories I couldn't hear. But our fragile bubble burst on day 3 when someone banged on my door like they owned the place. A woman in a sharp suit introduced herself as Patricia, his assistant, and barged in without waiting. She froze at the sight of Daniel cradling Lily in my mismatched living room. "You've been gone for a week, Daniel," she snapped. "Investors are panicking. Henderson's threatening to pull their project. You can't just disappear." He didn't even flinch. "I told you I needed time." "Time you don't have," she shot back, her voice dripping with condescension as she glanced around my apartment like it was beneath her. I stepped between them, holding Lily. "He's where he needs to be. Back off." Patricia's gaze was ice cold as it raked over me. "And you are a nurse," I said firmly. "And apparently the only person keeping him and this baby alive right now." That shut her up for half a second. She tried another tactic, proposing Daniel attend a crucial meeting to stop the company from spiraling. He resisted, but I saw the flicker of responsibility in his eyes. 2 hours, Patricia promised. "We'll even set up a private suite for Lily. You can't let everything you've built fall apart." Later that week, we walked into Mercer Tower, this gleaming skyscraper that smelled of money and power, and I felt wildly out of place in my simple navy dress. But Daniel looked sharp, composed, Lily's carrier in one hand, determination in his eyes. Patricia ushered us to a private suite stocked with everything a baby could need. I stayed there with Lily while he went into the meeting, but I could hear everything through the baby monitor. He started with the usual business talk, but then his voice softened. "I lost my wife last week," he said, and the room went dead silent. "I've been learning how to be a father, and it's changed everything about how I see this company. This project isn't just a contract. It's a chance to build something that matters." There was something raw and real in his voice that silenced every objection. By the time he walked back in, not only had Henderson agreed to stay, they'd offered 3 more deals. He looked at me exhausted but lighter somehow and whispered, "I remembered who I am in there." From then on, something shifted between us. He started spending more time at my place, learning, laughing even. He'd make late-night bottle runs, I'd teach him how to swaddle, and we'd share quiet conversations about grief and hope. I found myself falling for him, and for Lily, harder than I wanted to admit. But I also knew he was a billionaire, and I was just the nurse who'd taken him in. Our worlds didn't match. One evening he surprised me by inviting me to tour a mansion in Buckhead. It was stunning, 5 bedrooms, marble everywhere, a nursery that looked like something from a magazine. "I can see us here," he said softly. But I looked around at the perfection and felt like I was drowning. I'd feel like a guest, I admitted, like I don't belong. He looked stunned, then said something that broke me a little. "You're not a guest, Maya. You're the reason Lily's alive. You saved us." That night he made me an offer: become Lily's full-time caregiver, live with him, let him provide for me. He said it wasn't charity, it was love. But all I heard was power imbalance. I'd spent years building my independence, clawing my way out of debt, proving I could stand on my own. I couldn't trade that for security, even if it was tempting. If we're going to be a family, I told him, it has to be as equals. I can't be someone you keep. We argued, both of us raw and scared. But by the end of it, he surprised me. He said, "You're right. I don't want to buy a family. I want to build one." So instead of the mansion, we found a modest bungalow in a quiet neighborhood. We pooled our money, mixed my thrift store furniture with a few of his sleek pieces, and built a home that felt like ours. It wasn't glamorous, but it was real. Months passed, and we learned how to be parents together. Daniel returned to work with new boundaries. I cut back my hospital hours to spend more time with Lily. We fought exhaustion, celebrated milestones, and became something I never expected: a team. One morning over coffee, he handed me a stack of papers, legal guardianship papers for Lily, making me her mother in every way that mattered. "You saved us," he said softly. "Now I want to make sure no one can take her from you." 6 months later, Lily was babbling, crawling, and ruling our lives with tiny fists. Daniel had built a new wing at a children's hospital in honor of his late wife. But at home, he was just Dad. One morning, he pulled out a velvet box and placed it on the counter. "I've been carrying this for weeks," he said nervously. "I don't need a big wedding or headlines. I just want you, forever." My heart stopped when I saw the ring. Lily, sensing the tension, started clapping. I laughed through tears. "That's a yes," I whispered, "to all of it." Our wedding was small, just us. Lily, a few friends. No magazine spreads, no press releases. Just a family forged in chaos, choosing each other over and over again. Sometimes I think back to that stormy night when I found a stranger and his newborn in my hallway. I had nothing to give but warmth and soup, but it turned out to be enough. Some people would say this sounds like a fairy tale, but it wasn't. It was grief, sleepless nights, and hard choices. It was learning to trust, to fight for balance, to create something real out of broken pieces. And yeah, sometimes I still feel out of place when we walk into a gala or a boardroom. But then I look at Lily's smile or Daniel's hand in mine, and I know I belong. What about you? If someone from a world completely different than yours showed up at your door, broken, vulnerable, needing help, would you have let them in? Would you have believed you could build a life together? Tell me in the comments. Because I think the real fairy tales aren't about princes and castles. They're about choosing love every single day no matter what the world thinks.